Parasitic worms, helminthic infections. Parasitic worms are also known as helminths. They are classified as either platyhelminthes or flatworms or nematodes, the roundworms. The flatworm classification includes flukes and tapeworms. For this exercise, you will be using 3 different objectives on the microscope: the 4x, the 40x, and the 100x oil immersion. The first helminth being observed is Clinorchus sinensis. This is a flatworm, also known as a fluke. Adults will be observed under the microscope. Eggs are the infective form of this worm. After hatching, larvae will migrate out of the intestines into the liver and obstruct the bile ducts. Tapeworm infection is acquired through the ingestion of eggs. Adult worms will use a scolex to attach and burrow into the intestinal lining. The adult worm itself will never leave the intestine. The reproductive structures, known as proglottids, contain both the male and female parts for reproduction. Mature proglottids become egg sacs, break off the bottom of the long tapeworm, and are passed from the host in feces to cause further infection in another host. One of the most common types of roundworm infections is Enterobius vermicularis. This is the causative agent of pinworm infection. Eggs are the infective form. This is most common in young children, and the pinworm has a very complex life cycle. After ingestion of eggs, larvae migrate out of the small intestine into the bloodstream to make their way to the lungs. The small, microscopic, thick cuticled larvae are then coughed up and then swallowed again by the host. Maturation into adult worms and copulation between the worms takes place in the small intestines. Gravid egg-producing females then travel to the colon. Hookworm is another type of roundworm that has major global health and economic impacts. Necator americanus and Ancylostoma duodenale are the causative agents of human hookworm. Human hookworm is listed as a neglected tropical disease and is classified as a soil-transmitted helminth. Larvae are the infective form of hookworm. Eggs passed in feces from an infected host will hatch in warm, moist, sandy soil. Larvae, when they come into contact with an acceptable host, will migrate through the layers of skin into the bloodstream and make their way to the lungs. Their life cycle is similar to that of the pinworm. The CDC estimates that between 500 and 700 million people worldwide are infected with hookworm. The final roundworm to be observed is Trichinella spiralis. In Trichinella spiralis, the cyst form of the worm is infected. It is most often transmitted by consumption of meat. After ingestion of the cyst, larvae are present in the intestines. Larvae will then migrate out of the small intestine through the bloodstream and make their way to skeletal muscle in order to encyst again. Helminthic infections have a greater health and economic impact than any other parasitic disease in the world. Yet most of these helminthic diseases are easily preventable and curable. Those people most affected by helminth infections are usually from underdeveloped and poor countries. Unsanitary living conditions is still considered the greatest contributing factor to the continued and frequent transmission of helminthic diseases. The study and research of helminthic infections is critical to overcoming the challenges faced by global health organizations. These organizations are working to eliminate or prevent the continued infection of millions of people worldwide.